How are you? Welcome to Critical Moves of Telesur. We are once again looking at the geopolitical issue that is going on for decades. The main obstacle for the European Union has placed on Serbia on its process to admission as a member of the community bloc, its relationship with Kosovo. In what stage are the negotiations going through? Why does Serbia stand in its discourse of negotiating to coexist, not to divide? Beyond Brussels, which powers intervene in this Balkan question? We unfold the geopolitical board. Let the games begin. Let's listen to the statements during the visit of the European Union authority who wants to try to undertake these negotiations once again. I came here, President Tassi, to offer a collaboration to facilitate the dialogue between you and Serbia. And I also came for you to trust us, and so we can have a very good cooperation. I say this because for me, the European Union is not complete without the Balkans. My duty, my task, my commitment, my objective is to accompany, facilitate the negotiations between Serbia and Kosovo, because the problem can only be solved by Serbia and Kosovo with the negotiations between them, and the only results can come from a mutual agreement. There is no solution. We will not impose ourselves on because we do not want to do that. Like all countries negotiating membership to the European Union, Serbia must progressively align its foreign policy with that of the community bloc. We should more often address international challenges with one voice. There is no difference between the United States and the European Union on Kosovo. Americans' vision of Kosovo is not controversial at all. Washington is very powerful, but they cannot offer us a seat at the United Nations in Kosovo. There are countries like China, Russia, and India. They may offer their opinions on this, but I believe that everyone understands that without the Security Council agreement, Kosovo will not be stated recognized by the international community. I said it before and I'll say it again. I'll be very open and honest. The European Union has made a strategical mistake with the visa liberalization toward Kosovo. This isolation and discrimination against Kosovo is unjustified and avoids its European future. I would really like to see a European Union with a unified approach towards Kosovo. Mr. Borrell repeated what the European Union has said on numerous occasions. Without the solution and a dialogue with Pristina, Serbia's European perspectives will not be secure. The Serbian people should know that, and that's why we have to work on solutions that commit us. Let's locate the place where this geopolitical problem is going on. Balkan Peninsula, area of geostrategic importance, located in the southeastern Europe, joins the subcontinent by the Balkan Mountains to the east and to the Dinaric Alps to the west. In three of its cardinal points, it's surrounded by seas: the Adriatic, the Ionic to the west, the Aegean and to the south, the Sea of Marmara, and the Black Sea to the east. And to the North Peninsula is usually delimited by rivers and rivers of the Danube. It is separated from Asia by the Straits of the Dardanelles and Bosphorus. In the western part of the Balkan Peninsula, Croatia, a member state of the European Union, Albania, Serbia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, Northern Macedonia, and the disputed Kosovo, are all included in the project to enlarge the community bloc. The region is predominantly mountainous, which make communication difficult, especially between the different ethnic groups that live there, not exempt of internal conflicts marked by religious differences and language to a lesser extent. Serbians and Macedonians are Orthodox. Croats and Catholics are a majority of Bosnians are Muslims. Just like Albanians, despite the difficulty communication routes, this route has been a mandatory passage between the East and the West, thus serving as a link between Europe and Asia, a sort of hinge point which gives it a geostrategic importance. This explains why the region has been decided by many powers. It is not a coincidence the United States has installed one of its largest offshore military bases in Kosovo. It's called bond steel. The region has also abundant resources such as iron, lead, zinc, coal. Mining is one of the main resources, and a potential hotbed for tensions between Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, and the Republic of Northern Macedonia. These three territories have more international protectorate character than sovereign nation states, with presence of foreign military forces in parallel. For China and Russia, the Balkan region is a central point for reasons of influence and of building a new multipolar order. So, what is the proposal of the European Union to Kosovo? Let's let's see about this. After the unilateral decision of Kosovo as of declaring their independence from Serbia, there were strong strong tensions, and that has been the biggest obstacles. So it cannot become a member yet. They want to believe in coexistence. The Balkan country has presented their request in 2019, but to be accepted, there has to be a negotiation process. In the negotiations that began in 2011, 23 points were just dealt about: customs, university titles, free circulation of people. However, this last point is the one that has not been implemented. In March 2002, there was a status of country, a candidate country, about the representation, the regional representation of Kosovo. This happened in 2014. In 2015, two first chapters were opened. One of them was about the normalization between the relationship with Kosovo. And at the end of 2018, there had been a total of 18 chapters of negotiation. In February of 2018, there was a new policy in which there was an agreement where Serbia and Montenegro should go into the community with before this agreement goes out of effect. Serbia alerts of maybe that the compromise will not go into effect, just like what happened in 2013, where there was going to be a community of Serbian municipalities. This is particularly important because Belgrade would have to give up some resources and security and health. With this, we conclude let's start our digital review. We start with the Prensa Latina that speaks about the following. It says Kosovo and Montenegro and the eyes of Montenegro. This long saga and the recent events in Montenegro have caught the attention of analysts in the past week. The paralysis that does not lead to anything because about the socks to the kids, this could come to an end if there is more intervention of more negotiators. The visit of Joseph Borrell, High Representative of European Union for Foreign Affairs, after an intervention in Kosovo, is the first one that he has done since he took this post. And there might be a negotiation. The fact that in his meeting there was no consensus on who to talk with, this might be a good example with whom to go and negotiate. The former Spanish ambassador also said that only the renewing of the process that was established in 2011 in Brussels and the signing of an agreement could help us unknot this knot. Although he insisted that the European Union is not in a competition with the United States. And there might be a facilitator, and it thinks apparently Europe wants to take over supremacy and have the control over the continent. We also have information from the New York Times of February 4th that says Kosovo approves a new government and Prime Minister will be a strong person. After weeks of dialogue, the Prime Minister had promised to take a strong position with Serbia. Curti, of 44 years, he also told the parliament before the continent that was won with 64 points that he would fight against nepotism and corruption. And one of the main challenges that also includes 6 groups that represent many other minorities is to negotiate with Serbia. Serbia lost control of Serbia after the NATO bombardment in 1999 to expel, where more than 13 million people died. Kosovo declared their independence in 1908. However, with Serbia, we will have reciprocity in commerce policies, economy. I am ready to lead this conversations with the president of the Palestinian Force. As a recommendation, let me tell you to read the article called Serbia and Kosovo. This is written by Luis Iliana Castillo. This was written at the Yara. This was written in 2019. Let me quote: Serbia is a third country on which the hope of the Balkans lie. They want to come into the community restrictions. And this is also due to the traumatizing paralysis that these countries have. Once again, there would be a cut in their borders, and we will probably see a new movement of displacement of people that are similar to the ones that happened in the 90s. The movement of over 150,000 people could have a devastating effect on the region, especially in North Macedonia, with an Albanese minority that wants to integrate themselves in Albania or Kosovo. Even the people of Bosnia from Kosovo could find an agreement, maybe the option of giving in territory and a recognition to the autonomous territory of putting end to the war. There was a conflict, and the war came to an end because there was a redefinition of borders depending on the number of people. The author asks, is this the last opportunity of having a negotiated solution? Maybe. Kosovo looks to the other side of the ocean, just like when some of their heroes live. Maybe there could be an option that there could be a need to support, but at the same time they know that when this happens, the conditions will not happen. And when it comes to stability, we can say that some of the most aggressive countries are living there because nobody wants to recognize their own state, their own freedom. And according to the World Bank, there is like something like $7 billion annually. And the still weak structures of the government will make the growth even lower, even slower. Kosovo knows that time works in their favor, but they know that the negotiated exit would be the best way to stabilize the region. However, Serbia has the time against them. If they keep on pushing this conflict to the front, this would be a tendency. The solution of Kosovo is a sine qua non condition to have an entrance to the United Nations. However, to have an agreement with the government we cannot, they cannot break free from their ally of Russia. There's um there's an element that works in favor of Kosovo, and this could cause a domino effect of the continent. This is the main reason why, as the Prime Minister of Russia, Medvedev, said on October 19 in the Belgrade Parliament, he said the support to the Belgrade people, Russia will do everything possible to maintain her situation. However, Serbia will never accept to have this situation. Let's now see our strategic move before our next segment. So participate with us. What are the geopolitical interests when they want to condition the entrance of Serbia to the European Union? What are the interests behind this? Let's not forget that the U.S. also has military bases in this land. We'll be right back. There you have. We were seeing more articles, but before we go further in this conflict between Serbia and Kosovo, it's good to know that the self-proclaimed Republic of Kosovo has been the dispute center for decades. This conflict has gone on for 20 years after NATO bombarded, as we saw in our previous point, in 1998. When in February of 2008, against all of the legal processes established by United Nations, the Parliament of Kosovo declared their independence under the Republic of Kosovo. There were all of the dispute began with Serbia. Serbia says that up until now, Kosovo is one of their own provinces. And there are some countries that do support them, among them China, Argentina, Brazil, South Africa. However, 100 out of 193 members of the United Nations do recognize the independence of this small territory of less than 2 million people. The conflict is still on, and the intentions for dialogue are irregular. Experts affirm that the countries of Serbia and Kosovo are still entangled in their own realities, and they are not able to get closer to each other. There was an effort by United Nations to facilitate a dialogue, at least for topics of getting along with good neighborhood. Then there was a dialogue process, but the results have been very scarce. The negotiations are paralyzed for a year all over when the government of Kosovo imposed taxes on 100% of products that come from Kosovo. Then there have been another summit of where they agreed to have a dialogue. These were fostered by Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel. Experts say that one of the possible solutions to the crisis would be the exchange of territory. Kosovo would give Belgrade the northern part, while Serbia would give Pristina, which are two areas that are next to the Republic. Let's begin with the analysis for this. We have from Spain, Dr. Ejido. He's an investigator. Welcome, doctor. We have him on the telephone. There you go. Here we have him. We would like to thank you for waiting to give us your opinion This is a conflict that is lasting for several decades, and it is far from being solved. However, regardless of this recent visit of Mr. Borrell to the Balkanic Peninsula. Well, it's a conflict that comes directly from what the unipolar world came from. This is the destruction not only of the Yugoslavian republic, but also of Serbia, that used to be one of their components. The decisions were taken not only in the United States or the people who live there. So yes, there was a line that divided who was in favor of President Clinton, and he was the one who authorized the creation of this alleged state. But there was also an intervention of Germany, that they call themselves unified, or I would call them imperialist Germany, because up until not so long ago there were two Germanys, and one of them was very firmly committed to peace. However, the Germany that disappeared, that always wanted to have Yugoslavia next to them, along with the hand of the United States, they were able to get this. So they divided Yugoslavia and they dismembered Serbia, creating a conflict that is very hard. It's been more than 20 years, and 20 more can pass, or 40. And the hate that has been sowed by NATO, Germany, United States, among countries that did have a previous good experience of life in common, now with the difficulties that could have been solved before the NATO intervention, that up until now was directed by a classmate of Mr. Borrell. He leads the Foreign Affairs Office of the European Union. Well, these bombardments were led by NATO. And now the problem is that we have a Kosovo that at the outside has the biggest American military base. Let's not forget that the majority of Albania excludes the rights of minorities, except for those children who were born in their country. They live in conditions of dictatorship, and now Mr. Borrell tries to present that the European Union can work as an intermediate, when it's been the European Union who has been their heart, at the heart of this conflict that is monumental. A country that is not recognized by many, and among those Spain. This is not it's not because of a healthy reason, but it's so their example will not be replicated. Now there are other states that do recognize Kosovo, and the Albanese nationalists would want to attach Kosovo too, to create a big Albania, an ally of the United States. But now, what of Macedonia at the north, that is now into NATO? Well, this is very hard to manage, because this is created by the unipolar world, directed by the United States, but in this case also by Germany, because the fact that the European Union would want to do something about this. Well, reaching this point, I would like to take advantage of your dissertation to speak about how the international press and the international community had made Serbia responsible for what we know as balkanization, having set a name to these countries that tried to do so in this war of the 90 years, I ask you, who were the real responsible people for the balkanization? Well, I can say that there's a name in all of this. This is a special agent of the U.S. intelligence services. His name was William Walker. He was in charge of spreading after an investigation that the Serbian forces had killed civil Albanese citizens, when what really happened was that both services, both the U.S. and German intelligence service had created an army called the Army of Liberation of Kosovo that did not want to traffic drugs. They trafficked with something else, which was worse. This has been said by human rights organizations. What they did was they trafficked organs of the prisoners who fell in their power. So this is basically the worst we've seen. Terrorist groups and they were accused of doing monstrous actions. Who has led the policies in Kosovo to the shadow behind the shadow of Camp Bondsteel, that is the U.S. military base, the biggest one. And what they're doing is they're fostering the hate between the people of Albania and Serbia and other communities that have lived together for centuries. They have the responsibility of hate between countries that have lived for thousands of years together. And Mr. William Walker, who was the agent that he was reproducing this story, and at a point when Russia was so weak and there was no force to confront the manipulation, unilateral manipulation of the United States and their German allies, that made Serbia like their enemy. And at the end, they wanted to incarcerate the president of Serbia. That was the last group to reject against the U.S. So the great success of Germany and the United States was widely celebrated in the news media. This answer of yours, please tell us, with the geostrategic interests, is it real? The European Union is do they want to recover their hegemony in this area, or is there somebody else behind the curtain that would be interested in having a separation of Serbia from Kosovo? Well, the European Union, in the case of Kosovo, as well as in other cases, is a profoundly weak group, in politically speaking. And this man, 20 years ago, Michel Polon, established a map of Kosovo, making a land of the parts that used to be from German, and now they're from the mother of this child. And let's recall that ever since of the socialist years, this country passed from being profoundly agricultural to be industrial, with a high level of development, along with having a lot of richness. So if France had determined interests in a company, Kosovo And if the interests, whoever wanted something, they just took over. So if the United States wanted a part of Kosovo, they would just take over that. So Kosovo was up for grabs. It was sacked by multinationals and European countries. The industries of Kosovo, that could have been a competition for the Ecuadorian organization. What we have to do is dismantle these groups. It is not casuality of what's going on. It's not coincidence. While they're in the past there was jobs and all of the, and let's see, the self-made a government had developed a lot of the northern part of Yugoslavia, Kosovo, Montenegro, and all of this industrial richness has been dismantled in these years. Although we must say that in the north of Yugoslavia and Slovenia, the same thing happens. Half of the population is unemployed. There is a Slovenian sociologist that says now we are like a neo-colonialist country, and on top of everything, with less democracy than the type of the socialists. This is the reality of things that have made that have taken us to the situation. For example, Bosnia Herzegovina also created. And what they did, they created an intricate of that I think that we want to see how this is solved. At the end, we hope that this has a solution. Divide and conquer. This is the word of the Roman Empire that some other empires have put in their mouth. Doctor, I would also think that it's important to pay attention that has to do with Serbia and Kosovo, the risks for other countries. The fact that Kosovo could gain the recognition. Who would be there? Let's see the geostrategic location that this country holds. Well, NATO, well, the Americans, German and company, everything that could have divided, they already divided. What is the next country that was going to be divided? And right after this ends, we have the Russian Federation that wants to play the same thing. And here we have a Russia that was in the midst of an economic failure. They understood with clarity that the next step was going to be to dismantle the big organizations in Russia. And this indignation of the people of the country, because they want to see a strong Vladimir Putin. And they know that once the Russian Federation, the next on the list, independently of what system they have, will be Russia. Russia includes Siberia, a huge land. Is Stratega, which is a part of the American framework, and they think that to control Asia, it's important to control Russia first. The conditions in which this is going on it's like an invasion. People just watch from the sidelines all of the problems these countries are going through. Now let's see if the Russian Federation can give us a hand here. And here we have Russia creating a multipolar world with a scenario that is much more democratic, that does not allow the repetition of tragedies like the one in Yugoslavia and in Chernobyl. Thank you very much for helping us out. This is Dr. Juan Carlos Ejido. Now let's go to a pause, but remember we have asked a question with which you can participate and work with us. What is the question? What are the geostrategic interests when the European Union has conditioned the entrance of Serbia, a strong ally of Russia, to the community if they do accept the independence of Kosovo, where the United States has its biggest law point? Let's go back to a pause. We'll be right back.
Entre
20 years after the conflict of Serbia and Kosovo, what is the role of both countries? The conflict is still going on. Kosovo is still a self-proclaimed nation. Let's review this. With a geographic position that is strategic in the south of Europe, Serbia has seen conditions on their relationships on behalf of the European Union and the U.S. The Serbian government has had to sign agreements in the permanency of Kosovo as an independent country. Through a statement issued by the European Union, conditioned Serbia to have normal relations with Kosovo. The relationship has started to improve. There are still some elements that are to be solved. There is a manifestation against any arbitrarity. The relationship between Belgrade and Moscow are diversified, and both countries are analyzing areas on which to collaborate. Up until last year, the agreements reached $200 million. To this, Serbia is also part of the projects that China is carrying out. On its behalf, Kosovo, that is not part of United Nations, but of the 193 members, many applauded their independence. There is the support of countries such as the U.S. and many members of the European Union. Regardless of the tensions between these two countries, the commercial relations have increased in the last years, and this has been one of those scarce spaces where the relations are somewhat normal. Let's go over a digital website. Let's see what it says about the ties between Russia and Serbia. Serbia will receive from Russia some weapons in 2020. Russia will send an anti-air battery of 6 missiles, according to Sputnik. In last October, Russian anti-missile weapons have participated in the second phase of the conjoint exercise that they carried out in Serbia. The president of this Balkan country said that buying these weapons, it is also clear that Belgrade would like to receive from Moscow an anti-air weapon like the S-400. Russia is the largest exporter of weapons. They bought from Russia 7 helicopters, and along with this, they received as donations 6 air fighters and 10 vehicles that are shielded.
nos invita a llegar a conclusiones
So now let's go to
encontrar, ¿verdad?
conclusions.
Pero nos preguntamos,
But
¿aceptará
we ask
Serbia ceder a
ourselves,
Kosovo
would
tras
Serbia
los tratados
accept
de
giving
León
up
a cambio
Kosovo
de ser
in
admitida por la
exchange
Unión
to be
Europea?
admitted by the
Es una
European
pregunta
Union? This is
difícil.
a
La
this is
respuesta
a
que
question
se
that
ponen en juego
whose
son
answer is not that
intereses
easy,
geoestratégicos
because there
que
are
van más allá de la
geostrategic
puja
interests
entre
that go
Estados Unidos
beyond
y la OTAN por un lado
the
y
struggle of
Rusia
NATO
por
and the
otro.
US, and on
Intereses
the
que
other hand,
involucran
Russia.
a otros países
These interests
balcánicos
also have
que
to do with
tienen
other
atención hoy
countries
de
of
los
the
padecidos de los
Balkanic
90. Es
Peninsula.
incluso un conflicto de
It is
intereses
also
que no
a
pierden de
conflict of
vista
interest
otros
that
estados europeos
keeps in mind
miembros del
other
bloque comunitario
government
como España, que
groups
mantiene vivo
that
puertas adentro
maintains
más procesos
alive
de
more than
independencia.
one independence
Falta
process.
observar cómo se
We still have
desarrollarán
to
ahora los
see how
acontecimientos tras
the
haberse
events will
electo
develop
una nueva administración kosovar. Pero
now with a
sí
new
podríamos coincidir
president in Kosovo. But
la
we can
paz,
agree
la
that the
seguridad
peace, the
territorial y el
security,
rechazo a la
and the
injerencia
rejection to the
deberían ser las
interference
premisas
should be the
sobre la base del
premises
diálogo.
for the
Cerramos el
dialogue.
tablero por
We
hoy.
have come to an end for today. See you tomorrow.